We open our worship today with this prayerful meditation in honor of Father's Day, adapted from a reading by Christian Grassel Schmidt. Father's Day prayer. Ground of all being, great nurturing spirit. This morning especially we give thanks for beautiful days right in between spring and summer, for flowers and green trees and freshly cut grass and lazy lakeside afternoons, which encourage us to have hope. For the sound and sight and heart swell of being together in this place, which even virtually is made holy by our presence. For church years gone well, despite challenges around us, for ice cream and all manner of frozen treats on warm summer days, and for all who have warm and loving relationships with their fathers and children, who give thanks. For those who, for whatever reason, do not know their fathers, try to remember that this can be an uncomfortable day for you and others. And for those whose relationships with their fathers or children is painful or complicated, we support you. This Father's Day, we lift up our gratitude for all kinds of fathers and for the amazing ways fatherly love transcends bloodlines and legal categories. And for this morning especially, we enter worship holding our hopes and prayerful concerns. We pray for justice and a resulting peace. We pray for healing for those suffering from COVID-19, other illnesses and pain, and for those caring for these people. We pray for comfort and strength for those whose hearts are breaking, whose anger is erupting, whose tears are flowing because of the injustice of racism and oppression in its many forms. We pray for hope and joy, giving thanks that even as we strive towards building the beloved community, we experience glimpses of it in our best and most loving interactions with one another. We pray for courage to ground and center ourselves in our highest values and principles, and to put them into action for ourselves, for others, and for our shared future. For these and for all of the hopes and aches and prayers of our own hearts, we pray for love's sake. Amen.
Good morning. My name is Karma, and I'm honored to serve as the minister of the Unitarian Universalists of Central Delaware. We want to welcome you and all of who you are to this worship service. Our experience of this day and of this sacred time of connection is better because you are here. We are grateful still for the technology that allows us to gather virtually, and we affirm and celebrate that we remain a connected, vibrant spiritual community even when we cannot gather together in our home sanctuary at Congregation Beth Shalom. Church did not ever close because church is not a building. We have simply adapted so that we can continue the essential work of being an open, progressive faith community. A few technical notes so that you can get the most from this worship experience, especially if it's your first time with us. Please do remember that we're all learning together during this time, and things still won't always work exactly as we've planned. In fact, you can count on the fact that we'll make some mistakes, but we will do our best, and thank you in advance for your grace and understanding. Please feel free throughout the service to utilize the chat window as one way that you can participate in this time of worship. Your comments will not be seen as an interruption, but rather a form of engagement. You can enable the chat window if you don't see it already by clicking the chat icon at the bottom in your Zoom menu at the bottom of your screen. You'll note that there will be some slight delays between various elements of the service so that we can tend to the behind the scenes technical aspects of our worship. Those should be roughly equivalent to the time it takes for someone to walk up to the microphone when we're in person. Your microphones will be muted for the majority of our time together to cut down on any background noises. I know we have some lovely birds singing in outdoor environments this morning, which is great. When there is a time for community sharing, we'll invite you to unmute yourself using the mute and unmute toggle button in the bottom left-hand corner of your Zoom screen. And we'd like to invite all of you to stay after we've concluded the service for a virtual coffee hour when all of you can use voice and video to spend some time in conversation. Now let's all take a deep breath in our own environments, and let me welcome you again to this time of worship. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you've been, whatever you've done, whatever your religious beliefs are or aren't, and wherever you physically are on the planet right now, you are welcome in this spiritual community. However you move in this world, how much or how little is in your bank account or wallet, and however you are feeling in this moment, you and all of who you are welcome in this spiritual community. We are all enhanced by being together.
If you have a chalice where you are, please light it while I light mine. And listen to the words of Deanna Van Diver, who wrote, "We light this chalice, symbol of our faith alive in this world, naming our vision of collective liberation and daring to remember each other into beloved community." Our opening hymn is "We Would Be One." The lyrics will be shown in the video. Please join me in saying together our traditional words of affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
My name is James Earl Jones. You might wonder why I'm doing the reading and not you. I'll give you a hint. As old as I am, I still need practice because I learned to read quite early, around by the time I was 4, but I didn't read out loud until I was 14 because I didn't talk. You see, I'm a stutterer and I'm also somewhat dyslexic, but we'll try this anyway. Today, I'm reading To Be a Drum, written by Evelyn Coleman. The artwork is by Amina Brenda Lynn Robinson. During a morning mist, the fog swirled up around Matt, Martha, and their daddy. And when they sat cross-legged, They couldn't be seen from afar, but they were there. Then Daddy West told them a story in his soft voice, the voice that could tap, tap, tap Matt and Martha gently on their hearts. Daddy West began, long before time, before hours and minutes and seconds, on the continent of Africa, the rhythm of the earth beat for the first people. The earth filled the air with spirit. The spirit rose on the wind and flew into our bodies, and our own hearts beat for the first time. We were alive. The beat moved through our bodies and pushed out from our fingers. That is how our drum was born. With the drum, we spoke to the animals and to the people. The earth's heart beat out the rhythm of all there is. We listened and sounded the rhythms back for her to hear. Then men from another continent came, men who would not listen to the rhythm of the earth. They shackled us, the people of the earth's color, and flung us into the bellies of ships, bringing us enslaved across the oceans and the seas. They tore us apart from one another and did not allow us to speak our own languages. We were a lost people. We were no longer free. We thought we were no more. Then they took the drums away. But cruelty cannot stop the earth's heart from beating. The earth spirit moved through us still and pushed not only out our fingers, but out our entire bodies. And we became the drums, living drums, beating for the whole world to hear and see. We were alive. We would be free. So, when we worked in the fields, we made our feet drums. When we sang songs under starless skies, we made our mouths drums. When we talked to each other, we made our speech drums. When we stitched our quilts, we made our hands drums. When we fought in wars, we made our courage drums. When we invented things, we made our minds drums. When we fought for our freedom and for our civil rights, we made our communities drums. When we created music, paintings, sculpture, dances, and dramas, we made our art drums. When we wrote down our wisdom, we made our stories drums. When we recorded our memories, we made our histories drums. When we became farmers, scientists, teachers, leaders, entrepreneurs, and tradespeople, we made our dreams drums. We were the earth's people. We were the living drums. We would always be free. Daddy West leaned over and whispered, "Listen, do you hear?" He stretched out on the earth, his arms spread like a bird's wings. Matt and Martha lay down close beside and put their ears to the ground too. They waited for the magic to be theirs, waited for the hearing of the earth's heartbeat, waited to become. "I hear it, Daddy West," said Martha. "I don't hear anything," said Matt. "You've got to let go, son," Daddy West said. "Be quiet and still. You'll grow to be strong if you learn to be still." Matt let out a deep sigh. His body relaxed, like when he floated on the pond. At last, he heard the earth's heartbeat. "I hear it, Daddy West. I hear it too," he shouted. Daddy West smiled. And what does the earth say? Matt and Martha and Daddy West all drummed the earth's heartbeat together. Boom, 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 boom. Now the both of you, Daddy West said, will always know how to beat out your own rhythm on the earth. Then Daddy West, Matt and Martha took each other's hands and strolled from the field with the heartbeat of the earth sounding their way. You too can be free. Become a drum.
Unitarian Universalists have a legacy of deeds, not creeds. Our work for a better world calls us to unexpected places as we harness love's power to stop oppression. From grassroots community organizing to interfaith state, national, and corporate advocacy, in protest marches, prayer vigils, and press conferences, in homeless shelters and in prisons, Unitarian Universalists put our faith into action. As a broad UUA fellowship, our justice efforts are grounded in our congregationally driven social justice statements and our call to break down divisions, heal isolation, and honor the interconnectedness of all life by all justice issues. We model these commitments by creating just, welcoming, and inclusive congregations. We act in partnership with groups and communities most impacted by justice on local, state, national, and international levels. Our ministry focuses on organizing and includes service, education, advocacy, and public witness, the spiritual practice of taking a public position in support of justice. Our UUA organizing strategy team, Drive Strategy, strengthens the capacity of UUs to organize for justice and to mobilize power and people for liberation. Our Side with Love, or Stand on the Side of Love campaign, harnesses the power of love to end oppression. Our Love Resists campaign activates people of faith and conscience to resist the harm inflicted by criminalization. In 2020, UU The Vote is supporting congregations and UU organizations and activating thousands of Unitarian Universalists to mobilize for electoral justice at the local, state, and national levels. Our UU College of Social Justice provides the experiential learning opportunities to deepen the work of justice for people of all ages. If you want to know more about how to engage with the UUA in matters of social justice, please let us know.
When we are physically together, we generally invite you to come forward and light a candle and share with us your joys or concerns. Today, we'll adapt this slightly and ask you to share very briefly what is most on your heart right now, and to light a candle in your own space. Through the act of sharing and kindling a flame, we give energy to our best thoughts, meditations, sympathies, celebrations, and prayers. We hold these as sacred in our collective hearts. We invite you to change your view to gallery view by checking on the button in the upper right corner of your screen so that you can see everyone who's here. Note there may be 2 pages. As you feel led, please unmute your microphone and share your joy or concern. You can watch the mute signals on the lower left of each person's video stream to see if anyone else is unmuted before you unmute yourself. It's best if we share one at a time. Please mute yourself after you have shared. We light one final candle for the joys and concerns that were not spoken by those here today, and in solidarity with others in our community who could not be with us today.
A central part of our worship, both in person and online, is the opportunity we all have to practice the art of generosity. Our gifts to UUCD are what allow this congregation to thrive with a common vision to nurture our spirits, build community, and change the world. We're grateful to you for the many ways you support our community, including your financial pledges and offerings. Your gifts truly translate into lives changed. Every part of our ministry, from the worship that grounds us in our values, to the community gatherings that connect us, to our children's education, to our social justice outreach and actions, all of these are supported by your gifts. Today, we want to thank you specifically for the pledges you have given in this year's stewardship campaign, which have allowed us to unanimously approve our budget for the coming fiscal year. Even in the midst of a global pandemic and the worst economic recession in decades, you have managed to increase the financial resources that we will put into living out our values in the coming years. Thank you. For those who are making pledges or who want to contribute to this community, you may continue to write checks and mail them to us, or you can give online. There are instructions to do both of these things on our website at uucd.org. Just click Support UUCD on the menu bar. You can do that now during this offering song or anytime that's convenient. And now for the offering.
Be alright, I'm on your side, I'm on your side. If you're sitting at the kitchen table, counting up your bills to pay, I'm on your side, I'm on your side. If you drop the kids at school and wonder if they'll make it home today, I'm on your side, I'm on your side. You're staring at the TV stations, wondering how we got this way. I'm on your side, I'm on your side. Can you hear me? Is your heart beating like a drum? Can you hear me? I don't care where you come from, I am on your side, I'm on your side, I'm on your side, I'm on your side, I'm on your side. Is clinking in your cup, you're thinking about giving up. I'm on your side, I'm on your side. And if you got the news today, doctors telling you to pray, I'm on your side, I'm on your side. And if you feel the pounding fear when flashing lights are in your mirror, I'm on your side, I'm on your side. If you hold a friend and say, I wonder how we got this way, I'm on your side, I'm on your side. Can you hear me? Is your heart beating like a drum? Can you hear me? I don't care where you come from, I'm on your side, I'm on your side,
I'd like you to take a few minutes now to center yourself. Take a few really deep breaths, just one at a time, being very conscious of the air going in and the air going out. And then listen as I read you a piece from the UUA Love Resists organization with a really quirky title. Prayer for what you want to do, prayer for when you want to do a spiritual thing, but are really nervous. a good thing for me to be reading right now. Dear God or Goddess of shaky singing and prayers with long, meaningful pauses so I can think of what to say. Remind me that it's not about being extraordinary or professional or perfect. Remind me that practicing means I'm growing. Remind me that even an awkward song gets us breathing. An oddly placed silence slows our panic. A prayer is heard even when I mumble. Remind me that I have offerings, ancestors whose stories give strength, food that nourishes, melodies for courage and rest, a touch that soothes. Remind me that we are all spiritual beings and we deserve spiritual nourishment in our long meetings, in the streets, in the jail, at court, on the Zoom conference call, and now. Take a few more deep breaths, and this period will end when I ring the bell.
Today's reading is adapted from Martin Luther King Jr.'s From Lifting Our Voices. It can be found in UU Readings in the Living Tradition. It's number 149. This is where we are. Where do we go from here? First, we must massively assert our dignity and worth. We must stand up amidst a system that still oppresses and develop an unassailable and majestic sense of values. What is needed is a realization that power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. And justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. This is what we must see as we move on.
This is where we are. Where do we go from here? These words from our reading are the ones that have been reverberating in my mind a lot of the time these days. It seems surreal, honestly, at least for me, to look around the world and admit, wow, this is where we are. We are living with a convergence of monumental issues, tragedies, and opportunities, a global health pandemic, an economic recession, and a wave of energy that's moving people to join together to confront the racial injustice that has been a blight on our nation for over 400 years. Now, any one of these things on its own would be enough to call us to a place of sober reflection. Together, they become even more than the sum of their parts, especially in those places where they converge and amplify. All of these things help us recognize just how much the human family is suffering and in crisis right now. This is where we are. This week, the number of confirmed COVID-19 infections has risen to over 2 million. That's more than double the population of our entire state of Delaware. And those who've died, nearly 120,000 so far. In an attempt to remedy the economic suffering being experienced due to this pandemic, we are, in my opinion, rushing to open up our country in ways that put millions more people at higher risk for infection. Last week, the President of the United States ordered police and National Guard troops to clear a group of mostly peaceful protesters from the street by gassing them and shooting them with rubber bullets so that he could walk across the street for a photo op in front of a closed church holding not his, but a Bible, a sacred text from multiple religious traditions, and a book I sincerely doubt he's ever read, at least not in the desirable reading for comprehension kind of way. The president also announced that his big, very big, very, very big campaign rallies will resume despite health risks and requiring those who attend to sign a waiver absolving his campaign of responsibility if they contract the coronavirus. And the rallies will start up again in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is one of my hometowns where I grew up. And it's going to start in the part of the city, the Greenwood neighborhood, that was the site of the 1921 race riots in Tulsa, when Black Americans had finally begun to build a community of their own in that town with Black-owned businesses and homes, with a new vision for empowered and harmonious living. And they, after an event, became terrorized when police and white mobs began killing people in the streets, and the entire neighborhood, including homes and businesses, was burned to the ground. The president's choice to resume his rallies here in what has been called Black Wall Street or Little Africa is no casual coincidence. It can't be. Not against the backdrop of an entire nation of protesters right now insisting that Black lives matter and that systemic racism must end before even more Black people are killed for being Black. It's not an accident that he originally chose the day of June 19th, Juneteenth, when we celebrate when that news of emancipation finally reached the last slaves in Texas 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, and heard that they were free. Now, due to public pressure, he's postponed the rally until the following day, but there can be no mistake that this rally will stand in stark contrast to the celebrations of liberation that this holiday represents, and that people all over the nation, all over the world are calling for. Every day, there's more and more evidence that racism is itself a pandemic and a health crisis. People are literally dying in the streets. Black and brown people are also the ones most affected by the virus that all of us are vulnerable to, and most affected by the economic recession, driving so many decisions about how we'll live in both the short and the long term. This is where we are. Illness, poverty, racism, fear, anxiety, grief, anger, and a feeling of helplessness. So many people are trying to understand and manage these things. And there are news stories every day that add insult to injury. Vile threats of using the military against our own citizens for exercising First Amendment rights. Peaceful protesters forcefully arrested, including members of the press, even in Dover. In San Jose, California, the police shot their own diversity trainer, the person employed and paid by the San Jose Police Department to help them be more equitable and just. He was shot as he was trying to de-escalate tension in the groin with rubber bullets, causing physical trauma I won't describe because most of us don't want to think about it. In these ways and too many more, the divisiveness being intentionally sown among us is taking root, growing stronger, and bearing absolutely horrifying fruits. This is where we are. Now, I realize this may sound a lot like a political speech, and most of us who have the privilege and the freedom and the responsibility of the pulpit are warned not to bring up political or controversial topics because it makes people feel uncomfortable. I get that. And in my opinion, these things ought to be making us uncomfortable. It is an aspect of white privilege for those of us who are white that so many of us think we have a right to be comfortable amidst injustice. And while this reflection might sound political, I want to assure you that it is a very spiritual reflection, and I really do believe that deeply in my heart. Because the reason that we talk about these things in faith communities is because our faith, our core values, our religious traditions, the community that we're trying to build together that uplifts us and makes us better people, requires that we remain relevant to the world in which we live. The famous theologian Karl Barth, whose work had a profound impact on the field of religious ethics, is widely purported to have said to his Christian peers that if we aren't reading the Bible in one hand and the newspaper in the other, we've missed the point. Now, whether or not he said those words exactly, that sentiment is certainly consistent with his expressed convictions that one of the primary points of spiritual reflection and religious community is to help us live in the world we inhabit in an ethical and engaged fashion. This is where we are. So where do we go from here? That's the second part of the question. And I have to believe that our faith holds a key. Whether our first language of faith is Christian or Jewish or Muslim or humanist or ethical atheist, how we talk about what we most value, what we think life is meant to be about, is what we desperately need to be talking about together now. There is a sense of urgency in the world, that we pay attention to what is happening, that we stop turning a blind eye to things we'd rather not see because they are unpleasant and may not primarily affect us. This is a moment that is yearning for a compassionate response based in humility, in a willingness to admit what we don't know, to apologize and attempt reconciliation when we make harmful mistakes, a willingness to learn together, and a relentless conviction that we must do something to make a positive change and repair what is broken in us, in our relationships, and in the world around us. As is being oft repeated, this is not only a moment, it is also a movement. Because as we respond to those things, we need to be aware that the work, the spiritual work we're called to do, is lifetime work. We can't fix systems that have been forged over hundreds of years in a matter of minutes or months. They're so ingrained in our culture that they protect their own existence and power every day in so many ways. They function like one of those blow-up clown bop bags that are weighted at the bottom. I don't know if you had one of those. I did. When you begin to push them over, they pop right back up. They restabilize themselves. We have to work together in sustained, focused, and intentional ways, not only to push them out of our way momentarily, but to take the air out altogether. Because the changes that need to be made in our systems, healthcare, prisons, policing, and the resourcing and funding of all of the above, among other things, are probably not mere tweaks. The reforms needed will probably require some serious dismantling and creative reconstruction that must begin with our values and our humanity. Where do we go from here? As Unitarian Universalists, we share some baseline principles that can point us in the right direction, and it seems right to me this morning to read them aloud. The 7 UU principles are for us a moral guide and a foundational approach to building the beloved community that we long for. And here they are. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth. A free and responsible search for truth and meaning. The right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. That's what we say we are about and are working towards. In addressing the claims that sometimes can be made that these principles are weak or simple, Reverend Meg Barnhouse argues that they're actually quite demanding and complex. She suggests, as we reflect on them, that we tack on to the end of each the phrase, beginning in our hearts, beginning in our homes, beginning in our congregation. If we affirm and believe in these ideals, it requires a great deal of us, and it starts with personal work in our own hearts. How are we upholding the inherent worth and dignity of every person, even in the secret places within us? How are we working for justice, equity, and compassion in human relationships, the ones we have? Not just as an aspiration-worthy dream, but in comfortable, complicated, and real ways every day. These are the kinds of questions I think can guide us as we truly reflect on the question, where do we go from here? Or, in other words, what now? So the last thing I want to say today is that this work is best done together. Certainly, undoubtedly, it's messier and more difficult together because people are like that. Even the ones we love the most are messy and complicated. But even as we're staying home and isolated more than ever, this is a time to be together, united in spirit in the struggle, to learn together, to cry and laugh and shout together, to make mistakes and work through them together, and to act for change together like never before. My hope and my prayer is that all of us will do this in whatever ways we're able. And then that will stretch ourselves to go just a little further than we may think ourselves able, because we must. Let us move purposefully, if imperfectly, in fervent hope for a better and more just world. Our closing song this morning is The Fire of Commitment, and I just invite you to sing loudly in your own environments, and the words will be on the screen.
From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion need to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of
Please join me in saying together the words we traditionally use to extinguish our chalices, saying, "We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again."